All right, let's go. Drive time Monday afternoon, 13 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. It's another 90-degree and sunny day outside. We got a hot week ahead, but some cooler temperatures coming up this weekend to give you kind of a little tease for fall as we are about to turn our calendars finally to September. We got about 75 degrees Saturday, 70 degrees on Sunday. Of course, we live in Utah, so that could change. But a hot weekend. It's about 95 degrees and sunny here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah on this beautiful Monday afternoon. And as it is every single day, it is good to have you with us. Spence Checketts back behind the mic after a couple of days off last week. I want to give a shout out to my friend Tony Parks, voice of the Bees and friend of the show, for stopping by and filling in. And, of course, Porter Larson for co-hosting and producing and booking last week. Now, Porter is off today. My guy, Zach, is producing the show today. So Porter with a day off. He'll be back with us tomorrow. And in the meantime, we have a lot to do. We are 10 days away from kickoff for Utah football. 10 days away from kind of celebrating the start of the best time of the year for certainly a lot of sports fans as college football is here. Week 0 ahead. We had some JUCO football over the weekend. Snow College in action. High school football got going a couple of weeks ago. So you're already probably sitting down and watching America's #1 sport. There's no doubt about that. So we'll get to some Utah football. Interesting list from Chris Vanini today from The Athletic, ranking all the teams in the P4 conferences. Tell you where Utah came in. Tell you where BYU came in. Utah is going to welcome in Idaho. Coming up next Thursday, September the 3rd at 7 o'clock, our pregame coverage on the station will begin at 4. So, 3. We'll have 4 hours of pregame coverage for you next Thursday, the season opener for Utah football. And, of course, Porter will be hosting our pregame show, as he has for the past 5 years. And then Bill Riley, voice of the Utes, will take over and call the games, as he has for, I don't know, maybe 20 years or so. Bill's been on the mic for a long time for Utah football. A couple of days after that, BYU opens up. BYU will welcome in Texas Tech to Lavelle Edwards Stadium on Saturday, September the 5th for a 6 o'clock Mountain Time kick. Television coverage for that game will be on ESPN+. Keep that in mind. And then our friends up in Logan, Bronco Mendenhall and the Utah State Aggies, they get their football season going on that same Saturday. An hour before BYU will kick, they'll kick off against Idaho State at 5 o'clock Mountain Time. Television coverage there for the debut in the rebuilt Pac-12 conference for the Aggies will be at 5 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. A lot of NFL storylines going on. A lot of people surprised that Deshaun Watson, I don't know why you announced this 3 weeks before week 1, but Deshaun Watson is QB1 in Cleveland, so Spencer Fano, former Ute, will be blocking for Deshaun Watson. Had some interesting things to say about Browns fans after he was booed, and then came out with a little bit of a mea culpa today. A really weird story out of, well, I guess it's out of Ohio. Jed York, the owner of the San Francisco 49ers, was arrested over the weekend. He entered a no contest plea to a pair of misdemeanor charges. That was today after being arrested in Ohio on suspicion of engaging in prostitution. According to the court records in Columbiana County, Jed York allegedly responded to an undercover ad on a known prostitution website and arranged to have sexual activity with a female in exchange for $140. He was arrested upon arriving at the meeting location with the cell phone used to arrange the meeting. He was arrested in a mobile home community. This is a billionaire owner of the San Francisco 49ers arrested Sunday at 9:35 a.m. Sunday morning. Journey out and about to a mobile home community for Jed York. So he was initially charged with misdemeanor counts of engaging in prostitution and possessing criminal tools. That was the cell phone charge. He paid $1,150 in fines. He was sentenced to a day in jail. They gave him time spent because he was arrested. And that story broke today. It's just very weird. Very weird. He was married up until May. He filed for divorce from his wife, Danielle, in May. He's been the majority of the Niners since 2024, but the team's chief executive officer since 2008, originally from Youngstown, Ohio. So really weird. It's not funny. It's just weird, right? So that story surfaced earlier today. All right, RSL over the weekend. I was with the club. It was a fun time to take the road trip. I do try to do with them once a year. This year we went down to Orlando. Maybe we'll do some story time later. Little Universal Studios. Elite roller coasters at Universal Studios Orlando. Had a good time kind of exploring downtown Orlando. After the match, which did not go RSL's way, they lost 2-1, 10 different changes to the starting lineup, as the first choice lineup is thought to be seen coming up tomorrow night in Colorado against Leon for the Leagues Cup quarterfinal, a game known as the Noah Khan game. Because Noah Khan is playing a concert at America First Field. I'm actually going. But because of that concert that was booked a year ago, RSL, who should be hosting this game, is playing this game in the stadium of their arch rival, Colorado Rapids, who, by the way, are not being very nice people about training facilities and such. Pablo Mastroeni needs reinforcements. Xavier Gozo actually scored a goal for the U21s with Crystal Palace over the weekend. So we'll get you the latest on the RSL landscape after spending the weekend with my RSL family. Really good people. I always enjoy some time with them. High-speed head to training camp in the NBA. Do a little Jazz basketball. The Jazz, with some social media videos over the weekend, it appears that they were in Finland, home of Jazz superstar Larry Markkinen. So we'll get you some NBA, some Jazz basketball. The Nuggets made a weird trade last week. Then they signed DeMar DeRozan. So there's some NBA news. But right now, this time of year, majority of the coverage on the show starts to move over to college and pro football with an eye on RSL and, of course, the Utah Jazz. All right, good guest list today. Dave Bartu, and if you're familiar with the show, first of all, hi, how are you? Thank you for your ears. Second of all, Dave Bartu could be at a cannabis dispensary. He could be hunting elk. You never know, but he is a really fun college football guest to have on the program today. So we're bringing Dave in. We're bringing Dave today coming up as our first guest. Sammy Moore, our friend from Ute Zone, who's a consistent contributor to this program to talk Utah football, stops by. Kyle Bonagura, who covers college football and soccer for ESPN, is our guest. And then we'll catch up with, unfortunately, no one else is available, so Trey's going to join us from RSL. Trey's good to kind of walk us through this butterfly effect and how this has kind of all gone down to kind of change these venues. So we'll bring in Trey for the latest on our RSL. Dave Bartu for college football, Sammy Moore for Ute football, Kyle Bonagura for big picture, Big 12 college football, a little soccer, and then Gerald Fitzgerald, Trey Fitzgerald, Gerald Fitzgerald III will stop by later on. Me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. And sitting in for Porter today is Zach with is that a PSG jersey?
It is. My mom was in Paris over the summer and decided to grab me a PSG jersey.
Who is your EPL team?
EPL?
For some reason, I thought you were like a big City fan.
Nah, I wasn't City.
So is PSG your international soccer team?
No, it's Real Madrid usually.
Oh, Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. You ready to do the show today?
Yes, sir, I am. I'm excited. We're 10 days out from kickoff against Idaho. Kind of a real first test for Kevin McGivern's new offense with Dampier healthy, and you got Wayshawn Parker coming back, and some question marks coming into this roster.
There you go, Zach. Save some hot takes for later, buddy. Don't.
I will.
Don't unload the tank in the first segment, but we appreciate Zach filling in for Porter, who will be back with us tomorrow. All right, Dave Bartu is going to be our first guest. But before Dave stops by, courtesy of our good friends at IFA Country Stores, on this Monday afternoon, it's time for your opening tip. Now, like any good coach, it's time to update the game plan for a healthy green lawn as the hot weather continues this month. Make sure you're using IFA Step 3 spring and summer lawn food for healthy turf that stays green in every season. IFA Step 3 lawn food, it's the ultimate lawn owner power move, our good friends at IFA. All right, as the college football season continues to get closer and closer, I continue to be entertained, I guess is what I'd say, as far as following the preseason coverage of people who cover the sport concerning our local college football teams. How are people talking about year one for Morgan Scalley and the University of Utah? And what's kind of the narrative surrounding Kalani Sitake and BYU, as they're now the established program in the state in a way that Ute fans, at least in this younger generation, are kind of used to having that moniker. It's not the way anymore. Now, The good news is there's enough built-in respect and belief that Morgan will essentially run this thing in the way that Witt did to kind of keep it rolling as far as what we're accustomed to. Now, what expectations are, that kind of depends on who you're listening to, who you're talking to, and it honestly depends on when you started cheering for Utah football and what you're used to with Utah football. If you are a Utah football fan of this younger generation, you are used to, more often than not, this team flirting with 10 wins, competing for conference championships, and sometimes even winning conference championships and advancing to really good bowl games. And ending the season ranked, sometimes in the top 15. There's a, rare occasion, moment in time where, once upon a time, they finished number 2 in the country after beating Alabama in the Sugar Bowl and going 13-0 back in 2008. Now, those seasons, more than anything else, are the exceptions for most football programs, nearly every football program, quite frankly, in the country. So there is this different feel among the younger fans in Utah football history that no matter who the coach is, no matter who the players are, we are Utah football. We know what to expect culturally with this program here in Salt Lake. And the expectation is you go scratch double-digit wins, you go compete for a conference championship, and maybe sometimes you actually go win that thing. Is that realistic to expect this year? Continues to kind of be my question. The latest college football list that just came out, and I like Chris Vanini, does a good job. Chris Vanini went through the exercise of ranking all the teams in college football, and he has Utah at 26. The more interesting part is Arizona at 27 and TCU at 28. So ranking 138 college football teams, Chris Vanini is the latest to do this. I think Chris is really good at what he does. If you're not a fan of The Athletic, I would encourage you to check it out. I like to support friends of the show, namely Chris Camerani, our buddy Tony Jones, who's now covering Philadelphia. So if you look at his list, BYU is at 14 in the AP. That's the highest preseason ranking for BYU in the AP since 1985. So most people believe that what Kalani has built and 23 wins over the past couple of years, there are only 4 coaches in college football that have as many wins as Kalani does over the past, I think it's 5 years, if I remember that correctly. So the hype around BYU continues. So while BYU is at 14 in the AP, Vanini has them at 11. He actually has them just 2 spots behind Texas Tech. He does have Texas Tech in the top 10. So he has Texas Tech at 9, BYU at 11. And as you kind of look at the rest of the landscape, Houston is at 19. Okay? So Houston is the 3rd highest ranked Big 12 team for Vanini. And then he digs into Utah at 26. Then it's TCU 27. I misspoke. TCU 27, Arizona 28. 2 teams that Utah will see this year. And 2 teams that Utah will not just see this year, but they will see them on the road after the BYU game, which, as we talk about all the time, oftentimes that rivalry game, Utah-BYU football, it does lead to a letdown the week after for both teams. Not every year, but oftentimes, even if it's not a loss, it is a week that drains you. So Utah faced with at Arizona and at TCU after hosting BYU, that to me is where the season hinges. Now, if Houston is as good as everybody thinks they're going to be, we'll be circling that game on October the 24th here in Salt Lake City. So it's obviously great to have them here in Salt Lake. But as most of and look, it is poll season. I will pause to remind you my take on polls. Most of them are irrelevant and don't tell a story. Always a couple of teams that we think are going to be really good turn out to just fall flat on their face. And in this day and age of college football, because of the turnaround year over year, there's always an Indiana-type story where they kind of come out of nowhere, even though 2 years ago Indiana was pretty good. But the more and more these polls are released, whether it's Joel Klatt, whether it's the AP, Coaches Poll, and now the Athletic, most people do have Utah in the mix with some other really good teams in the Big 12 that we may not have seen coming. Houston, Arizona, TCU are those 3 teams that I think are going to tell the story of this Utah football season. And obviously, whoever wins that Utah-BYU game, I think will be in a really good position to make the Big 12 championship game, where I still think on the other side of the field, you're going to find Texas Tech. And I think most people would agree with that. There are some people that believe BYU should be the favorite to win this conference, namely the coaches in the Big 12. But more interesting stuff as we kind of approach the start of this thing, only 10 days away from college football, at least here in state. We got week 0 this week. Utah, Idaho, coming up next Thursday, 7 o'clock kick. Don't forget, we're your home of the Utes. Our pregame coverage begins at 3. More college football pretty much throughout the majority of the show. We'll catch a break and bring in our buddy Dave Bartu, the College Football Matrix. We've got Sammy Mora on the show. We have Kyle Bonagura on the show. Do a little RSL later on with Trey. Got a busy Monday show. It's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. All right, we're 10 days away from the start of college football around here, University of Utah. First year under Morgan Scalley. We'll welcome in Idaho coming up next Thursday, September the 3rd. 7 o'clock Mountain Time kick. We're your home of the Utes, so we'll get our pregame coverage going at 3 o'clock that day. Your television is ESPNU. BYU and Utah State kick off on Saturday, September the 5th, so it's a great time of year. And always a great day to catch up with our guy, Dave Bartu, the college football matrix, who might be hunting elk, building a cannabis store. I don't know. Dave, what are you doing today?
Oh, dude, it's so funny. I was just checking my trail cams up in the mountains, man, before we came on. That is funny as heck. Now I'm doing that, and I was actually working on spreads and totals in college football and the NFL by coordinator.
Huh.
Right, because follow me, right? The head coach doesn't change, but he brings in a new OC or a new DC, and that fundamentally changes game outcomes, even though it's the same head coach. And so, you know, a good example is, you know, right off the bat, we got North Carolina and TCU. And the total on that's 49.5. Now, the most common number in college football total is 55. So the new offensive coordinator at Kansas, in his career as offensive coordinator, goes over 69% of the time. Bobby Petrino, the new offensive coordinator at North Carolina, goes over 61% of the time as an offensive coordinator, not as a head coach, as a play caller. So we got two OCs that are both way over for their careers. We have a number that is under the median, and then with North Carolina on top of it, you have a persona non grata defensive coordinator. We don't even know where Steve Belichick is, and supposedly it's by committee. So, you know, week 0 bets. Let's go over 49.5 to start this thing.
Okay. All right. Always fascinating to get a peek into the mind of my guy, Dave Bartu. I wonder if we could to talk about some of the coaches. Have you done any digging? I know you know Morgan Scalley, of course, but there's a new defensive coordinator in Colton Swan, a new offensive coordinator in Kevin McGivern, and Morgan's now the head coach as Witt obviously lives in Ann Arbor now. What do you make of the new Utah coaching staff?
Well, you know something. I mean, it's just big question marks, really. You know, because I don't believe, did your new DC have any play calling experience at DC?
Weaver State. So this is not a new job for him; it's a new level for his skill set.
Okay, it's a new level. But we got no FBS information on him. Now, is Morgan going to call it, or is he going to CEO it? What has he said? Really?
Well,
you know,
Morgan's a lot like Kyle, where he doesn't say a whole lot. I think, Dave, it's going to feel a little bit similar to when Morgan first took the job and Kyle was still kind of it's the defense that Fred Whittingham is credited with created. All these guys kind of believe in the same concepts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and that's fine. You know, and typically you're going to hire a guy that has similar concepts to the guy that just left. If anything, just for a little bit of continuity. You know, now with McGivern, I mean, you obviously have a veteran presence in terms of being on a college football sideline, but you know, last year again, Utah State, and so you know, we don't have a really great number on what he has been able to do offensively. Yeah, they put up decent numbers in his year, you know, for the Aggies, but again, this is from head coach to OC to DC, I don't think anybody can really have an opinion on it. I think the opinion should be pessimistic and hope for the best, prepare for the worst, because that's sports. But you know, it might take a year or 2 or 3 to figure out what we really have at all the key positions.
See, I want to hone in on that, Dave, because look, I was at the U with Morgan. Okay, I've known him forever. I think he's going to be great. I really believe that if it was time for Witt to leave, that Morgan was the guy. And of course, coaching waiting for quite some time. And Morgan, as a defensive coordinator, always scored high in your metrics. But it took Witt, you know, a few years to get his footing, even in the Mountain West. And then with the move to the Pac-12, you know, there were some couple 5-7 seasons. So I'm approaching this year with Utah football with more curiosity as opposed to conclusion. I don't really know exactly what to expect. I'm optimistic and hopeful. But as far as you covering this sport when it pertains to new coaches and coaching staffs, how rare is it for a guy to take over year one and just kind of live up to what the legend did prior to his promotion, if that makes sense? It doesn't feel like that happens all that often.
Yeah, it's nearly impossible, and you might get it down the road, okay? But typically year one, the average new head coach, not rookie, new head coach, and it's worse at the P4 level than the G6 level. Okay, Witt going to Michigan has a bigger negative effect than Witt going to Utah State, where it's almost zero. It depends on which way the guys go. But in that year one, whatever your number is that you expect, just take one away. If you expect 8-4 and you get 7-5, that's pretty average. And so the odds of somebody stepping in and meeting or exceeding somebody that was, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, Witt was legendary. I mean, he's a man.
Yeah.
He's a guy. And no matter what he does at Michigan, you can't take away all the W's for Utah. So. Morgan, I agree with you 100%. One of the best defensive coordinators year over year out there, has had a phenomenal career, 100% earned it. We don't know how it's going to turn out. And so certainly I think 2026 it's a wait and see. It's going to be a work in progress, and to expect Morgan to pick up right where Witt left off is – I think you're asking for a very, very rare percentage to happen. It could, but I can die from a cold as well.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen, Dave, because I like you as a college football guest. Kalani had to replace one coordinator because Jay Hill, who also always scored highly in your metrics, has left Provo to join Witt in Ann Arbor. Kelly Papinga, who's been down there forever, seemed like the logical choice. He was the choice. But what does the dynamic of losing Jay Hill potentially mean for BYU?
Well, we got the same issue, right? I mean, we got Papinga that's never called to play. Now we have continuity on the defensive side just with Kalani, and quite frankly, without Cignetti, Kalani might be the biggest overperformer of talent in college football in the last 2 years. And I think he's largely underappreciated with what he has done at BYU. So, but with Kelly, again, I have nothing on the guy other than I expect BYU to be a couple games over expectations when I'm looking at the schedule, because that's what coaches really set up over the last few years since moving to the Big 12, and has done an absolutely just a rock star job.
Aaron Roderick, who was a coach up here for a number of years, nearly took the offensive coordinator job at Washington, but ended up down at BYU as their primary play caller. A-Rod, friend of the show, was on a couple of weeks ago. Zach Wilson, Jaron Hall, now this young Bear Bachmeier kid who had an incredible year a year ago, the fourth freshman in college football history to win 12 games. I wonder what sort of data you have on A-Rod. It feels like he's kind of elevated his profile in the college football ecosystem.
Oh, there's, in my opinion, there's no question with that. And we have him as a four-star offensive coordinator. He is just a solid play caller. And quite honestly, I'm a little surprised he doesn't get more attention in the offseason. So I think he's done a tremendous job at BYU. And I don't know where we have him graded exactly amongst active OCs, but a four-star guy is typically top 25th percentile over the last 15 years. So he's done a really good job for BYU. And again, I almost feel, I don't know, do you guys feel this way, that a lot of BYU stuff just gets underappreciated and swept under the rug the last couple of years since the move to the Big 12? Because it just feels like that from my chair.
Well, maybe from a national standpoint, Dave. I mean, look, I'm a sports talk radio host in Salt Lake City, and Kalani Sitake was the defensive coordinator for the Utes for a decade. And like I said, A-Rod was up here for 12 years. Gary Anderson is also down there. Like, it's a really interesting market with all of kind of the cross pollination between not just Utah and Utah State. Like Bronco Mendenhall is, not just Utah and BYU. Bronco Mendenhall is coaching Utah State now, and after Kevin McGivern took the job in Salt Lake with the Utes, he tabbed Robert Anae, who was his offensive coordinator at BYU and Virginia. So I think for those of us that have been around here, this is my 20th year in the market. I very much am aware and appreciate and respect what Kalani and A-Rod have done down there. And hopefully both Utah and BYU are able to have something to say about the Big 12. But if we pan back and look at the Big 12 as a whole, what are your feelings as this conference is the Rodney Dangerfield of college football, trying to get some respect from the SEC and the Big 10?
Oh, you're never going to get it. Stop trying. I don't think it'll ever come around. So just play the cards you're dealt. Whatever's put in front of you, and look, BYU did that last year. Personally, I thought they were. Texas got all the blah 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 discussion about missing the playoffs, but I had BYU their performance ahead of Texas along with a couple of other schools. So all you can do is look at that strength of record and how well did you do against the teams you matched up with, and then you start going through the conference. I mean, outside of the offensive and defensive coordinator and player talent at Texas Tech, who's a better coach in the Big 12 than Kalani? Is there one? I don't have one.
I'm biased, right? And so
right. But is there? We don't have judgment on Morgan. He's not above or below because he hasn't done anything. But I think if we sat down, look, if I can have Texas Tech's OC and DC and their talent and Kalani, how are you not betting on that every year? Because I do believe, and the numbers show it, I do believe Kalani's better than McGuire as a head coach. And I believe Kalani's the best one now that Witt has moved on. I think Kalani is clearly, by far and away, the best head coach in the Big 12. And the Big 12, in my opinion, is a coach's league. The talent is much more concentrated, or I should say the playing field is much more level. And you got to like Utes' chance just simply because they have the ability to attract as much or better talent than everybody else in the Big 12 as well. And honestly, I think one of the biggest disappointments is once Utah hit the Big 12, surprised Witt didn't get a conference championship at least one of those years with that talent.
Were you surprised that Kalani said no to Penn State and decided to stay in Provo?
Did he?
He did.
For sure.
For sure. He has said that on the record. He said that on this radio show.
Okay. I got conflicting stories, but that's cool. Then he's a lifer, right? He's either an NFL guy or forever at BYU. And that's one of the advantages that I think BYU, the intangibles they have, is the dedication and continuity that the program creates, right? From a player standpoint, from a coaching standpoint. I bet you if you looked over the last 3 years, because there's a clear delineation in the data between pre-NIL and NIL, and that was the transition from 22 to 23. I bet BYU is one of the best, probably not just in football, but a lot of sports, keeping coaches, keeping players, and I think that is a really big deal at this level with NIL involved so incredibly over the last 3 years.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the staff Witt has put together at Michigan. He took 6 Utah assistant coaches. As I said, he took Jay Hill, Jason Beck, who did a hell of a job with his Utah offense a year ago. It was the second best rushing attack in the country, the best rushing attack in the Big 12. And most people, as they're analyzing Michigan this year, Joe Klatt has them as a top 10 team. Most everybody else has them, I don't know, between like 13 and 16, thereabout. What are you expecting from Witt in that staff year one in Ann Arbor?
Is Joel still the Big Ten official honk of the Big Ten?
I don't. I mean, he's pretty biased, but I feel like most of those guys are pretty biased towards the Big Ten and the SEC.
Well, but there's at least one guy that is always like, my top 10 is all this conference, So with Michigan, I like the staff. But remember what I just said about the transition. That first year, I think Kyle's first year at Michigan is going to be his worst one. And I have them circled as a team that's going to be out of the top 25 at the end, 8-4 or 7-5. It's a very well coached league as well. But in terms of head coach, OC, and DC, that combination is extraordinarily good. I think the ceiling on those three is very high. But again, I'm looking at the numbers going, do I expect it to be high the first year? No, I can't. The numbers say don't get over your skis on anybody, Dave. I mean, if there's somebody I'd love to get over my skis on, it'd be Lane and LSU. But I don't think Michigan is going to be ready that first year with all the transition and lack of continuity that I just talked about. So while I like it going forward, I'll disagree with Klatt and go the other way on Michigan and fade his top 10 prognostication.
You had referenced Kirk Cignetti. Of course, he is kind of like the shining star on college football now. And in any sport, whenever a team achieves something like Indiana football has achieved over the past few years, it turns into a copycat scenario. Even Sharif Shah, coach here for Utah, a couple of different times has referenced what Indiana has done and kind of opening the minds of what the possibilities are should you be able to do what they just did, which is much easier said than done. Dave, how did Kirk Cignetti turn Indiana football into a national champion?
God only knows, brother. God only knows. I mean, it's not even. It is the single greatest season of my lifetime, and I don't expect it to happen again. It's incredible. It's not. You can't. There's just no words that describe it. It's just so outside the box, unbelievable. And then you look at his last 2 years, and you look at his last 4. I mean, it is the single greatest year. It is the single greatest back-to-back years of anybody. It's the single greatest 4 years of coaching by anybody. And it's just, and I know a lot of people go, well, if Indiana can do it, we can. Dude, shut up. I mean, just shut up. That is so talking down to what Cignetti did. Understand, Cignetti plus his OC and his DC and a special teams coordinator, that is the single highest graded group of 4 coaches at those positions, head coach and 3 coordinators. There is nobody graded better than Indiana. Nobody. And so when somebody says, well, we can do what Indiana does, dude, you do not have anything close to the coaching that they had. I will say this, though. I've been studying Kurt, and subconsciously he does something very different than anybody else. He uses timeouts to control momentum early in the game on offense and on defense. The number 2 guy that does that well is Ryan Day. The number 3 guy is Lane Kiffin. So when you're watching Utah and Morgan, see how he uses his first half timeouts. Does he hold them, trying to wait for that final first half drive and play scared, or does he use them to try to control the momentum, either punching a score in or stopping a drive? Really something I find that interesting. I think subconsciously Cignetti is managing the game with timeouts better than anybody before him, and I think it's something new that is going to be talked about going forward.
So one of the interesting things that's manifested during the preseason coverage of the sport is if you look at like Vegas odds, if you look at sportsbook odds, if you look at prediction markets, if you look at the AP and the coaches poll, what they're all saying is there are 7 teams in college football that can win the national championship this year. It's Ohio State, it's Oregon, it's Georgia, it's Notre Dame, it's Texas, it's Indiana, and it's Miami. Would you agree that those are the 7 teams that can win the thing? And is there anyone outside of that 7 that you would put it into that group?
Well, partly with what Cignetti just did, you got to say, you can make up any group you want. Okay, I would throw Texas out of that group right now. Okay, what they did in 2025, there is no team in the last 20 years that has been so bad at generating momentum and controlling games the previous year that has turned around and won a national title. Steve Sarkisian has underperformed the talent that he's had in 9 of his 11 years as head coach, and he's terrible at surviving not having momentum. I would throw Texas out of there completely, okay? Miami, I call them tier 2. Mario still has game control issues. He loses too many games in which he has control of them. Yes, they have the talent. They have a good OC. They have a good DC. But I think that the overall game management might inhibit them. And Oregon, I would throw them out as well. They have the lowest graded offensive coordinator in the Big Ten. Nobody has won a national title with a staff profile like Oregon has right now. So I would toss all of them out. I'll keep Ohio State. I'll keep Georgia. I'll keep Notre Dame. And I keep Indiana as my top 4. Everybody else goes into a lower tier, and Texas into that third tier of Tennessee, Missouri. Why are we even talking about these guys?
The Athletic came out today, and look, it's preseason, so we're all looking at lists and reading articles. We're waiting for games, and thank God when those get here. But it feels like a lot of people believe like this is a big year for USC football and Lincoln Riley, who, of course, arrived with a massive contract and a lot of attention, but has never really elevated them back to, the Pete Carroll glory days like most people thought he would. What do you think USC can be this year? And would you agree that this is a big one for Lincoln?
Oh, they're all big for Lincoln, right? It's USC. What are they going to do? Fire him, get a better guy? Who are they going to replace him with?
Kalani.
Maybe they could. Ooh.
Yep. See, there you go.
I would love that, man. I would love to see the ground and pound at USC, man. That would be sweet. Just a big python snapping the ball 55 times a game. Oh, but that being said, Kalani can do something that Lincoln Riley never has, which is hire a good defensive coordinator. I mean, I can't believe he went out and hired a guy that hasn't called a play in 10 years. In the last season, he called plays. He was horrible, and it drove him out of the stadium. So I don't believe in USC just simply because the defenses shouldn't be there. Offensively, probably going to be awesome again. I mean, look how many quarterbacks have won a Heisman under Lincoln. Look at his offense. I mean, he's the number 1 play caller, in the country over the last 15 years. Absolutely amazing, but simply cannot get the defensive side of it right. So, even if he goes 9-3 outside he's in the top 25 outside the playoffs, is he done? I don't think so. I don't think they get rid of him. But that being said, you look at the schedule, Oregon, Washington, Penn State, at Wisconsin, Ohio State, 5 in a row, right? Start off 4-0 and 2-0, and their whole season is going to be decided in the month of October. So I'll take them at 9-3, missing the playoffs because, a lot like Texas, I've learned to not expect Sarkisian and Lincoln Riley to overperform their talent.
See, I think you referred to Kalani as a BYU lifer earlier, and you might be right. But if there's one job in America that might make him think, I mean, not just Penn State flirting. If USC, if there's some sort of James Franklin Penn State catastrophe this year, and USC decided it was time, Kalani would look at that job. I do believe that.
Oh, I wouldn't blame anybody for looking at the job.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't blame him for taking it. I mean, I think it is an incredibly elite job and great googly moogly. If he walked into USC, wow. I mean, I think they'd become an instant playoff threat. And I would love to see that brand of football in L.A. and competing in the Big Ten.
Dave, before I set you loose, you had referenced that you do like Notre Dame in that top tier, and for the Big 12 and to your point, this is a P2 reality. It's the Big 10 of the SEC. Everybody else is on the outside. We know that we're in Big 12 country, but for the Big 12 to ever get more than one team in the CFP before, I mean, if it expands, it's different. They are going to have teams get some big non-con victories over some peers from other places. And BYU has that opportunity as Notre Dame will be in Provo this season. What is BYU up against with Notre Dame rolling into town?
I think they're up. Well, let's see here. What are they going to be dogs? At least 7-point dogs?
I think more than that. Yeah, I think double digits.
9.5, 10.5. Could be even more than that. So I think they're up against a lot. I don't necessarily think they have to have a great non-conference win. I think two things that need to happen, okay? I'm not an expansion guy. I don't need 8-4 and 9-3 teams in my playoff. You tried, you failed, stay out, okay? But with NIL, I also think the day of the G6 is over. You know, the numbers have shown conclusively that the G6 quality has been diving. So expand it, keep it 12, drop the 2 freebies for the G6. I think there gives an opportunity there. And I think for somebody like BYU, look, they played really good, but you look at their strength of record. How bad did they beat everybody? Yeah, they won games, but they didn't dominate teams like we need to. So for me, I don't think it's so much you got to have that non-conference win. Now would be great, right? You beat Notre Dame. I mean, that's ginormous. But more importantly, I think, is play the card you're dealt, but go out there for 60 minutes and throttle everybody as bad as you can. Don't get up and put your foot off the gas. It is 60 minutes of hell for 12 games, and let the dice fall as they may.
Dave, where can people go find all of the work that you put in when it comes to covering football?
Right now, I'm on social media at CFB Matrix. If you got a question, comment, idea you'd like me to explore, you can text me, 971-217-8419. My Patreon account with a lot of my think tank stuff is at CFB Matrix on Patreon. And when I have my new Matrix Edge AI rolled out for college football and NFL, I'll let you all know.
Dave, thanks for the time. It's always entertaining and illuminating. Go hunt some elk, will you?
Thanks, buddy. You have a good one.
All right, Dave Bartu, College Football Matrix. Zach, are you comfortable giving your cell phone out on air? I mean, I don't know that I've ever had a guest. Usually I'm like, hey, where can they find your work? And we get like a website or a social media. I think that is a first. I don't think I've ever had a guest give his cell phone out on air.
I don't think so either. I mean, I wouldn't be comfortable. Would you be comfortable doing that?
Absolutely not. I mean, people, you can find my email if you want to get a hold of me. I'm on social media, but I think we just turned 8. In 8 years of doing the show, I've never had a guest give out a cell phone.
I know on our sister station, The Fan, I've had a couple of guests give out their numbers. I'm like, okay, interesting. But I know some of them are kind of like businesses as well. But, you know, it's interesting that people will do that.
Okay, listeners, do not start spamming Dave Bartu on his cell phone, please. A very brave move by Dave. All right, before we catch a break, I just passed my 3rd anniversary working with Game Day Men's Health. And if you haven't taken advantage of the offer, here's why you should. Okay, depending on where you're at in your life, you've probably noticed as you age, it's harder to get in shape. You've probably noticed as you age, you lose energy, you lose libido. Maybe it's harder to sleep. Just the deal, man. It just is the deal. There's no Father Time is undefeated. So 3 years ago, I just made the decision. I'm like, I am going to do what I can to look for ways to get into the best shape of my life. I want to feel better. I want to build muscle. I want to sleep better. I want to get my body fat percentage down. I want to measure everything and see what I can do if I really commit myself to putting in the work and finding a partner to help me understand what that looks like. So I started the process after New Year, as we all do. We set the resolution, we set the intention, and I was going hard. And after like 2 months, because when you're younger, you do that for a couple months and it works because you're young and young people are stupid. All due respect. You do not know what you have. And I was frustrated. I'm like, I'm working hard. I've eliminated some habits and vices. I'm eating right and I'm not making progress. And I had a friend ask me if I had ever supplemented testosterone before, which I had not. So he said, look, go into Game Day Men's Health. Take the consultation, which you guys should do that today. It's free. It takes like 20 minutes out of your day. So do that right now. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Schedule the free consultation. Take 20 minutes out of your day. Go get some blood work done. They're going to sit with you. They're going to go over your levels, and then they're going to explain, okay, you're doing well here, but here's some areas where you might be a little bit deficient, and we can help you with these options. They have semaglutide, they have tirzepatide, all the weight loss stuff that everybody seems to be taking. If you need to lose a lot of weight, they have those products. Now, for me, it was testosterone therapy, which I've been doing for 3 years, and I can promise you it will change your life. Caveat, you still have to put in the work. Okay. None of the stuff is magic. You still have to exercise. But here's the thing, this will help you sleep better, and then you'll have more energy. So when you get up, you're not bargaining. You're not like, okay, well, I worked out yesterday. No, you feel like you want to. And that to me is the biggest thing. So GameDayMenSouth.com for the free consultation. Here's what makes this a no-brainer, in my opinion, and it's why I do it, by the way. They're giving you the same deal they give me. If you sign up and start to follow their program, half off, 50%. The entire deal is 50% off. It's not some like, hey, enter the promo code for 5% off. No, half off. Makes this stuff very affordable. Once upon a time, it was for like celebrities or athletes, movie stars getting in shape, athletes getting in shape for the season. And now, because it's affordable, they bring it to the masses for you and me. Go to GameDayMenSouth.com right now. Cottonwood Heights or Bountiful, two very convenient locations right off the freeway. Get that free consultation. Make sure to tell them you heard me talking about it on the show. They're going to knock 50% off your membership. It's our good friends at Game Day Men's Health. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. More college football coming up next as our friend Sammy Mora from Ute Zone is our guest. Keep it here on ESPN 700. Are you playing young people rap on the show today? Is that what's going on? I have no idea who this is. Who is this?
Post Malone, bro.
I should know that. I should know that. All right, Zach is filling in for Porter today, and we're going to continue the college football conversation. She's joining us so often, I feel like she might as well just be my co-host. Sammy Moore from Utah back on the show. Happy Monday, Sammy. How are you?
I'm doing great, Spence, and I also support Post Malone. I am a big Post Malone fan, so I was really appreciating that song.
I am an admitted 90s hip hop snob because I'm an old man, so I just don't know much about like the younger hip hop generation.
See, no, I like a little bit of both. I like the old stuff, but I also love Posty. I actually was at his concert up at Res a couple weeks ago. I've never missed a Post Malone concert that are here in Salt Lake, so I just should tell you where I'm at with him.
How many Post Malone shows have you seen?
I think we're at 4 now.
Okay.
'Cause I went and saw him one of the first times he ever performed here was out at USANA back in I think it was 2017, 2018. It was right after his second album, Beer Bongs and Bentleys, dropped. And I remember that concert so vividly, and I've never missed a show of his since. So
He has an album called Beer Bongs and Bentleys?
yes. Because he has a bunch of Bentleys in his house. He's a notorious Bentley driver.
Oh, okay. Well, look, I will commit because my son I raised him on 90s hip hop. And so he loves like Post Malone and Kendrick Lamar. So I need to learn more about the younger generation. I'm old, Sammy. I'm just stuck in my ways. That's the deal.
Hey, no, it's fine. My Apple Music is probably one of the most diverse Apple Musics you'll probably see for a kid my age. It's just everything is in there.
You're Apple, not Spotify, huh?
I was Spotify, and then I changed to Apple.
Oh.
I like the audio quality on Apple is so much better. I'm kind of a music snob. That's one of the few things about me. I know some people are movie people. I'm 100% a music snob. I will, as soon as albums drop, I will listen to them. That's the kind of person I am.
The audio on Apple is better than Spotify. Is that a real thing?
Yeah, they have Dolby. They have Dolby Atmos audio. They have this thing called lossless, which really helps you can actually hear what it sounds like when you're in the studio, they're producing these songs. It's actually really cool. I enjoy it.
Huh.
It's worth a couple extra bucks a month, in my opinion.
You know who else agrees with you is Will Hardy, the head coach of the Jazz. He says the very same thing.
Good. I'm glad we're on the same page about something.
Let's just keep talking about music, Sammy. First concert you ever attended?
Hannah, Montana, when I was in 3rd grade.
Nice.
My mom took me. I remember sitting nosebleeds at the Delta Center with my mom. It was Hannah Montana, Miley Cyrus, and the Jonas Brothers. And that was the first concert I ever been to, and it was with my mom. Okay,
now I'm going to really date myself. Mine was the Beach Boys. Yours was Hannah Montana, and mine was the Beach Boys. That's wild.
Yeah, that's very different. Very, very, very different.
So I was born in the 1970s. How does that land with you? Be nice, Sammy.
I don't really care.
Okay.
I used to get jumped on by the beat because I was born in '99. So.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Yeah, it feels like being born in the 1970s these days is something you can kind of brag about. But look, we will move on because our listeners are probably like, what are they doing? The majority of the questions I have are questions that we've talked about over the past few weeks, but we are 10 days away from game day. Since you and I last spoke last week, has there been anything new that's really kind of stood out to you?
Well, we had assistant coaches availability this morning, actually, and there was quite a few nuggets that were dropped by assistant coaches that were kind of eye-opening for me, at least. I know Mark Atuaya said that Matiaki Halu is going to have his role in this year's offense. He called Daniel Bray a continuous bright spot in the offense. Jordan Gross said that he still feels comfortable with about 10 guys and that they're still mixing and matching and figuring out what that true combination is. But there doesn't seem to be any fear or any concern about why it's taken so long, which I find encouraging because I can think of 7 guys that can probably start at any given point on this offensive line. So for Gross to say they're 10 deep, that makes me feel, safe and kind of good about this offensive line. Luke Wells, the big thing that stood out to me from the tight ends coach was he said there's going to be expanded rhino packages this year. So if you're a fan of Semi Talwanga and Sione Motupuaka, like start buying your stock in them now because it sounds like they're going to be a bigger part of this year's offense than they were last year, where they just literally came in and blocked, basically. Bumpus mentioned Mana Carvalho as like the only other slot receiver behind Creed Whittemore. It seems like there's a lot of guys that can play in different spots, but Mana and Creed tend to be the only two that are going to play slot, which I found also encouraging. Mana is one of those guys that obviously we know what he is as a punt returner. Sharif Shaw even said that he thinks that Mana can be one of the best in the country this year. So having Mana have that increased role as a slot receiver also, I think, just boosts his confidence because he's a very talented wide receiver. His film is some of the funnest film I've watched growing up, or not growing up, but over the last few years. I loved what I saw when he committed to Utah. I'm just kind of going down the line. If you want to stop me, you can cut me off at any time, Spence.
No chance, Sammy. Keep going.
Ryan Gunderson basically said that, like, we all know what this quarterback room is. He's talked about, Bird and Devin being wild Mustangs, but you want to keep them on the path. He's talked about that very frequently all offseason. But he did mention Brandon Rose specifically. Someone asked about him, and he said that Brandon has maturity and knowledge of a bunch of different systems and schemes, which is going to help. He did say that he can rip the ball, like he can rip it, meaning he has a very good and very fast ball when he throws it. He still is a little bit behind in terms of offensive, install and stuff, obviously, because B-Rose joined the program back in the summer, so he's kind of a little bit behind everybody else, but he's a low-ego guy. And Gunderson even said, when Brandon does get a chance to play, we kind of have to change things because he's very a different quarterback from Devin Bird. So there's a lot of versatility in that quarterback room and some added depth. Coach Brechterfield, the big thing for me was he called Ethan Day. He said he's wired the right way because I know there's a lot of concern about him coming from the G5 level. And Noakes said that you can't even tell that he came from the G5 level. He plays at such a high level that you would think he's been playing at the Power 4 level his entire career, which is highly encouraging because Utah has some big shoes to fill on that defensive end spot. Derek Odom, again, talked about the versatility of his group. He has guys that can play safety. He has guys that can play nickel. He has guys that can play on the outside. There's going to be the key thing that keeps getting pushed by all of these defensive coaches is there's probably going to be a chance you see some 3 safety looks this season, which I'm encouraged by. I think that's fun because especially when you have a guy like Jackson Benny or Rabbit Evans, who both were called out as guys who can play safety or nickel, that just adds to the overall depth of this safety room and of this corners room. Improved tackling was just a focus for the defense as a whole. I asked Colton Swan about it. He said that they're making strides, but nobody's ever comfortable with how their team is as a tackling unit before the first game, just because you really tackle a lot during the fall. Like, you don't want to tackle your own teammates and hurt them. So that's something that across the country, I think, is something that you got to watch. Luther Ellis, the two things that stood out to me is Luther called out all of the Hall of Fame defensive tackles and said that they're all around 6 foot, recently. And that's what Jai Moy is. He's 6 foot. He's around 300 pounds now at this point. So Jai is of the same size as a lot of these, high-level Hall of Fame defensive tackles. And he has the motor and he has the skill and the ability to be that type of defensive tackle. It's just about consistency and getting him in more live reps. We know that he had the highest win rate of any defensive tackle in the country last year, but that was at San Jose State. Can he do it again this year at Utah? And a name that I haven't heard all summer that popped was Dylan Battle. He said, Coach Ellis said that Dylan is probably someone who's made the most strides since spring, and that he could be a surprise this year. I won't tell you what McGivern said because I just published a story over on Ute Zone because everyone can go and read that one. But basically, buy stock in this offense. There's a lot of playmakers. There's a lot to like. And on the defense, just the thing that Colton Swan kept pushing was versatility. There's a lot of guys who can do a lot of different things. We've heard that on the offense, and now we're starting to hear it on the defense. You have, like I said, secondary members who can play corner, safety, nickel. You have linebackers that can play on the defensive line, according to Colton. So there's just a lot that can, work with and you can use on both sides of the ball. And I honestly was very encouraged from everything I heard from the assistant coaches. There wasn't anything specifically that kind of sent out a red flag and started the alarm bells going off in my head this morning.
Sammy, I'm on air till 6, so never apologize for giving me all the content. I certainly would love for you to keep going if you ever want to run down the list. But here's what I wanted to hone in on. So, we've talked O-line. We'll get there at some point during this conversation. Last year, and look, it's a defense that for a number of different years is known for getting to the quarterback and causing havoc plays. And last year, I think the number was 34 sacks, which was second in the Big 12 to Texas Tech, because Texas Tech's defensive front last year was just a nightmare. Even for Utah's great O-line, it caused them problems. What's reasonable to expect, whether it's quarterback sacks, pass breakups, when it comes to deflections in the backfield, tackles for losses, havoc plays from the defensive front? Can they replicate what we saw a year ago?
That's a tough question, because majority of that sack total was carried by John Henry Daly last year. Like, obviously, he had 11 and a half sacks. So I'm pulling up the number right now. So it's like Utah had 34 sacks in a total last year. I think you can be in that 30 range, but I don't think someone's going to be highly concentrated like JHD. I think it's going to be a spread around this year. And honestly, I like that better. It allows for the defense to play a little bit freer. There's not one single person on this defense that, like, if it's an edge rusher, let's say Lance just pops off and he has 9 sacks through 5 games, let's just say. I know that's probably not going to happen, but let's just hypothesize here. If he has that 9 sacks, but nobody else is producing anything, defenses are going to start sending double teams on him. And that, could lead to an uptick in sacks from the linebackers and the defensive tackles, but it also could not. Like, it's one of those things where you got to kind of see how the cards fall as the season goes on. I do think that we're going to see guys that have, 4, 5, 6 sacks, but I don't think we're going to see anybody with a highly concentrated number. But I would say the 30 range is probably like high 20s to low 30s is where I'm going to say. I don't think they're going to reach 34, though.
Yeah, that's a big number. And it feels like the way you're describing kind of how everybody's going to eat a little bit, that kind of feels like how it is with maybe every positional group, maybe outside of, well, even quarterback, because there's 2 of them. Or maybe Wayshawn ends up being a little bit more of a bell cow than he was a year ago and gets over 1,000 yards. But as you're kind of describing what you anticipate with the defensive line, it's reminding me of what you anticipate with the wide receiver group, certainly star power with Devin and maybe some others. But is that kind of become a theme as it pertains to camp, how it does feel like there are several different options in most of these positional groups, which speaks to the depth of the group?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that I will say in January, I felt like there was only like certain guys that I felt comfortable with. But based on what we've seen in our viewing, whether it be spring or the 20 minutes we've gotten twice a week during the fall, my comfort level has grown in quite a few guys. And if my comfort level is growing and I'm only watching a drop in the bucket, how does the Utah coaches feel? And that was kind of the overwhelming sentiment today from all the coaches, was that the confidence is growing amongst these guys. Like, they're not overly cocky. They're not going to come out here and claim and say on record that they're going to go 12-0 and they're going to win a national, or 16-0 and win a national championship. But there's a quiet confidence, I think, that these guys know wherever they're at in the depth chart, they can contribute in some way. Like, Sharif even said that. Like, he said that with his corners, if a guy can show that he can, impact the game in different ways, they're going to see the field a lot sooner. Like, if there's a guy who's specifically like a sticky corner that you just need someone to stick on a wide receiver, he might see the field. But if you have somebody that can play, maybe that nickel or an outside corner, like that kind of role, that also adds some added versatility to this room. And I think versatility is kind of the word that I want to use for this season as a whole with this whole program. There's versatility in the quarterback room. There's versatility in the wide receiver room. There's versatility on the defensive tackle room. There's so many different combinations and so many different ways that Utah can play this year that I think it's going to be really fun. I don't think we're going to see, cookie cutter things that we've seen in years past. I think that's one of the things with Morgan is he wants to be cutting edge. He wants to be unique. He wants to be all these things. And the way you be cutting edge and the way you be unique is you have versatility and you have guys that can do different things in different positions and give you an opportunity to win games.
So I know you're a big Brandon Pagan fan. You talked about buying stock in Brandon Pagan. Talk about the depth of the wide receiver room beyond. It does feel like he's established himself as wide receiver 1. but it does seem like it's a room that everybody talks about with a bunch of names, with a bunch of depth. How's it shaking up as of now, Sammy?
Yeah, Braden is the alpha in the room, I think. Like he is wide receiver one. He's on the Bolitnikoff watch list. He's getting all these preseason accolades. Like he is very, like you said, very clearly wide receiver one. From there on, it gets kind of interesting because again, this goes back to the versatility. There's so many different ways you can mix and match this. Like if you want a speed package, then you don't put BP out there. You put maybe you put Kyrie Scholes, you put Creed Whittemore, and you put Nate Johnson out there if you want speed. If you want size, you go Braden Pagan, you go Tobias Merriweather, and then you maybe go someone bigger in the slot like Larry Simmons. There's a lot of different ways that this can mix and match, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay that there's no clear-cut number two right now. It just proves that there's so many guys that can do so many different things. Coach Bumpus even said that, like, rising tide lifts all boats kind of is what he said, is like guys know that if they get too complacent or too comfortable, there's somebody that's nipping on their heels that's going to take this spot. And I think that's something that I don't think I've ever remembered Utah having as with a wide receiver room, is just so much versatility and so many different guys and so many different body types and skill sets and all these types of things. So I don't know if there's a true pecking order yet, but that doesn't concern me because I'm buying stock in this wide receiver room as a whole. And I think I think when we look back at the season, I really hope that this wide receiver room is one of the shining bright spots of this team.
All right, I got to talk online now. And you had referenced that Jordan Gross talked about 10 potential options, which speaks to the depth. But if I asked you who you feel the most confident in, you can name all five if you want, but if it's two or three, whatever the number is, Sammy, who do you feel very confident in saying on this radio show will start up front this year?
Alex Harrison at center, Zaraway Williams at left tackle, Keith Olson at right guard. That's probably the three I feel most confident in right now. Solito and Moiai and Kelvin Oba are in that left guard battle right now. And then you have Cedric Jefferson and Ike Garcia battling it out for right tackle or left tackle. Sorry, I'm getting right tackle. My brain is so fried right now, Spence. It's not even funny. But there's still those two spots. There's a guard spot and a tackle spot that are still up for grabs. And so I think that those are the two. But the other three of Z, Al, and Keith, I feel pretty confident that they'll start.
Let me follow up about Obat because he is the highest rated recruit commit in the history of the program. And obviously a true freshman. It's tough to ask much of true freshmen more often than not. Of course, there are exceptions. But what sort of insight do you have on the kind of progress he's made throughout the course of both spring and fall camp?
Oba is one of those guys that we haven't had a chance to talk to yet. I put in a request to talk to him tomorrow, so hopefully we get to talk to him. But he's put on the weight that was needed. That was the big thing against him. It was kind of like Spencer Fano. When he came in, he was a little bit too light. He had to put on some weight before he was able to play. And again, it goes back to the Steve Saunders program. Like, he got in the weight room, he did what he needed to do, and he's up to playing weight now. I think that Obat's one of those kids that you need to sink reps into early. I don't know how you go about that when you have someone like Solitoa who's in front of him, who is such a veteran player on this offensive line. I don't know if it's making Toa, that extra rhino like the rhino blocker, kind of like how he was at points last season. I don't know if that's the route you go, or if you put, you rotate between Toa or Oba, or what you do, but you need to sink reps into him. Like, he is probably the future of this offensive line. And considering a good handful of these guys are out at the end of the season, you need to get him those experiences early. So we'll see where he shakes out. I know when I was on with OC the last time, he asked me if I think Obat's going to start over or under 5.5 games. And I took the under just because I believe in Toa Moiai and what he can do and how good of a guard he is. But I also know that you need to sink reps into Obat. So it's going to be one of those interesting things that we're going to have to watch and see how this season how it unfolds. But you need to get reps into him. I think that's cut and dry what you need to do, but we'll see how it goes.
What about the wide receiver room? Or excuse me, what about the tight end room? Because we talk a lot about wide receivers, and this is a program over the past decade or so with elite tight end play, with Brad Keithy and Dalton Kincaid and others. Who are some of the playmakers emerging from the tight end spot?
I actually asked Coach McGiven about this today because I was just genuinely curious what their usage is going to look like. Because at Utah State and in his previous spots, tight ends were kind of either on or off, like they were either used or they weren't. And so I kind of asked him point blank, I said, what is this usage going to look like for them? And obviously it starts with Hunter Andrews. He's kind of that versatile, again, word of the day, versatile, that do-it-all type of guy. Like he will inline block, he will be in the flex, you can line him up at running back, you can kind of do anything with Hunter. But then you have your Rhinos, your Semis, and your Siones. They're kind of a different group. I don't like to categorize them as tight ends because they just do so much different things than the rest of the guys, which then leaves you with the three that I think you're probably going to see a decent amount of this year: Noah Benny, Will Monty, and Bear Fisher. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know if they are 500-yard receivers at the end of the season. I don't think they are, because that would mean that the wide receiver room took a big step back, which I don't expect happening. But I think you're going to see usage for them. You're going to see them in certain situations. You're going to see contested catches. You're going to see them hand in the dirt. You're going to see them in blocking situations. But I do want to caution Utah fans that I think that the usage of tight ends is going to kind of change. It's not going to be the tight end usage that we've seen over the past few years. It's going to be a little bit different. And honestly, that's okay with me, because I don't remember the last time Utah's had a wide receiver room this good on paper. And I would like to see some big, mossing of defensive backs during the season from some wide receivers. So it's one of those things, again, it's kind of like, we'll have to see how the season unfolds to determine like what their true usage is. Because we hear things and then we see things, and it's kind of all over the place.
Have you been able to uncover some information on the chaos that Morgan is trying to provide when the kickers are kicking field goals? There was like a video that went around that he said they were going to live stream all the kicks, and I guess he's encouraging players to. I mean, look, you cannot replicate a game, but what are they doing to try to replicate pressure situations for the special teams unit during fall camp?
Well, Sharif mentioned it today. He said that they're, spraying water on guys. Morgan would run in between the long snapper and the holder to throw them off and stuff. You have all the players yelling at them. You have the live stream. There's just a lot of things that they just want to build up the confidence. And the phrase Sharif used today was an ironclad pre-kick routine. Because when you get into these pre-kick routines and you don't let anything affect you, it usually helps when you kick the ball. And so I think that that's the big thing with them, is just getting them in a rhythm, in a routine. Because Dylan Curtis has one of the best legs I've ever seen on a kicker. Like, his high school film is absolutely insane. He holds the Utah State high school record for the longest field goal made in a game. Like, he has the leg that you want to have in a college kicker. It's just a matter of getting his confidence built back up. Last season was not good for him, not good for him in any way. And so I think part of this is Morgan getting his confidence back. And Sharif said that if they miss a kick, they correct them on that they missed him, but they also love him up. Because for a kicker, this is literally your only job. And if a coach or a teammate or someone tears you down when you miss a kick, that's not going to help your confidence. It's going to do the opposite. You're going to go out there the next time and you're going to feel like crap, and you're not going to be able to kick the ball well. So I think loving them up while also telling them what they need to do better and what went wrong, I think is going to help. And we'll see how it evolves. But I do think that this year's special teams unit is pretty solid.
Before I set you loose, and again, ultimately, we are in a scenario where we're discussing the depth of this roster, which I think is an excellent piece of information for our listeners to have. But it seems like most years there's a Nate Orchard, a Clark Phillips, a Devin Lloyd, or a John Henry Daly from a year ago. Like, one standout on the defensive side of the football that causes not just big plays, but game-changing plays, whether it's a pick six, strip sack, something like that. If I asked you to give me one name on that side of the ball that you think is going to be that dude this year, who would you give me and why?
Jackson Benny, I think, is my first gut reaction. Just look at what he did last season, as playing, nickel half the season and safety the other half of the season. He had a team-high 4 interceptions. He was just everywhere. And yeah, Jackson had some things to improve on. He needs to improve on his tackling, which we've heard he's taken those steps. He needed to improve on his game IQ. He's done that from what we've heard. He's more comfortable in that position. He's on some pre-draft boards, I've seen him as high as, safety 2, safety 3 on some boards. Like, there's a lot to like about Jackson Benny, and I think that with him, it goes back to that versatility. You can play him at nickel, you can play him at safety, you can kind of move him around and do different things with him on the defensive front, which I think is going to help. If one play you have him at nickel and the next play you have him playing center field, how our defense is going to attack him? Because if he's playing nickel, he's a really good coverage guy. He is really good in coverage, but he also knows how to track down the ball in the open field. So it's one of those things with him that it's just like, it's going to see how is that jump from last year to this year, and how much has he really and truly improved as a player, because the sky's the limit for Jackson Benny. Like, I honestly think he could be the guy on this Utah defense this year. And I know it's weird that it's not a linebacker or a defensive tackle, but when you have a safety or a corner who can play the level that Jackson Benny can play, like, the defense should be pretty good, because that means that if he's playing free, that means the guys up front are getting back to the quarterback and doing what they need to do.
All right, Sammy, we're 10 days out. Where can people go find what you wrote about Kevin McGivern today and all your great work covering the Utes?
You guys can find us over at Ute Zone. We are a part of the On3 and Rivals network. I'm going to pimp it every time I'm on here, but we are still running our 75% off sale. If you want to join the best community and the largest community of Utah fans on the internet, come join us at Ute Zone. You will probably be more knowledgeable than most people in your circle after a few days on the Ute Zone board. Myself, Dan Sorensen, John Leone, and Dawson Jans, our writing staff, we've put in a lot of work this offseason to get you guys ready for football season. You can find me on Twitter at S_Mora99, and you can find the Ute Zone account at Ute Zone on Twitter.
Sammy, great work as always. Have a great week. Go listen to some Post Malone and some Hannah Montana, and we'll get you back soon, okay?
Sweet. Thanks, Spence.
All right, there's our friend Sammy Moore from Ute Zone. She is crushing it. She's been one of our best Utah football guests throughout the course of all of fall camp. She told you where you can go find her work. Want to let you know that Camp Scally is underway for Utah football for the best coverage of Utes fall camp. Keep it tuned into the Sean O'Connell Show and The Drive with Spence Checketts. That is me. That is this show every day. Or visit ESPN700sports.com. Camp Scally is brought to you by Senexel, JBR Beer Bar, Citron Cooperman, and our friend at Big O Tires. Sound Warehouse, your Utah Toyota dealers on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I want to let you know that it is time to start thinking about football, and we're only a few weeks away from the best time of the year. Now's the time to prep your field. Make sure you're using IFA Step 3 for the weeks ahead. When the weather is still hot, but as the dog days of summer give way to fall, it's time to start thinking about Step 4, our fall and winter lawn fertilizer. Either way, you can find out more by visiting ifa.coop online. All right, coming up on the other side, we have some breaking news about Utah football broadcasts. We have a new lineup. We're going to tell you who it is. We also have some breaking Real Salt Lake news. We'll do that coming up next. Going to bring in Kyle Bonagura a little bit later on. Lot to do. Busy show on a Monday. Keep it here on ESPN 700. So trying to articulate LL Cool J's place in rap is an interesting conversation, and no one wants to listen to two white guys in Salt Lake have it. But let me just say this. Very elite top shelf songs, and then like 85% of it is awful. Like 10 to 15% LL Cool J good stuff, and then the rest of the catalog is not great. Are you Zach? Zach is in for Porter today. He is a young. How old are you, Zach?
24.
You are 24 years old. You're younger than my son. He just turned 25.
Yeah, I think I saw your Instagram post actually too.
So were you raised with hip hop? Are you a fan of hip hop?
My dad raised me on some Beastie Boys.
Okay.
I kind of found the love for rap kind of like on my own, like Eminem, Dr. Dre, newer stuff too. Post Malone.
Okay.
Some newer stuff too. So I mean, I've been listening to rap for a while now.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, little LL Cool J, but this is more in my, comfort zone. I'm almost exclusively 90s only. A little late 80s is when it's kind of started to permeate a little bit. So Zach in for Porter today. I wanted to let you guys know that we do have a change on our broadcast team for the University of Utah this year, and I'm excited to announce that, of course, Bill Riley is back, the voice of the Utes. It'll be Bill's 18th year calling Utah football games. Friend of the show, Bill and I have worked together for, since 2006. So excited to have Bill back calling games. Of course, he is a pro, the director of broadcasting up there at the University of Utah. In addition to being the voice of the Utes. And very well-earned promotion is what I'll call it for Stevenson Sylvester, who has been on the sidelines for us for a number of different years, but now will be alongside Bill calling games. So I want to say a big congratulations to Sly. He's been coming on the show for 8 years now, and he has been working very hard to earn this promotion to move from the sideline now up into the radio booth. So really cool stuff for Sly. And then replacing Sly on the sidelines, it's a little bittersweet because I thought there was a chance that he had some football left in him. But Zach Moss will now be on the sidelines taking Sly's place as Sly moves upstairs to call games with Bill. So congratulations to Sly Stevenson Sylvester, one of the best to ever do it at the University of Utah. And that 2019 Utah football team, as we talk about on this show a lot, Zach Moss, I always said that I thought he was their best player, not just the best running back. I thought he was the best player on that team, a team that I always look back on as what could have been if certain things fell into place and they stayed healthy and won some games late. But very excited to announce, as your home of the Utes for 75 years now, the only home that the Utes have ever known as far as the radio and broadcast side, to bring you Utah football games this year. Bill Riley on the call, Stevenson Sylvester by his side, and then Zach Moss as our sideline reporter doing some interviews throughout the course of the game, then obviously after the game for some post-game stuff. On the station, our pregame show for Utah football will once again be hosted by Porter Larson, the producer of this show. Does a really good job. He'll have a little bit of a rotating cast of characters, depending on who's available. Last year, Sly would stop by, Zach would stop by. There's some Jordan Wynn appearances, and I'm sure with Porter's relationships with former Utah football players, you're going to like a lot what he will bring to the table. And starting next week, we're only 10 days away. Utah football will welcome in Idaho for a 7 o'clock kick at Rice-Eccles Stadium. And our pregame coverage for that game will begin at 3 o'clock. So we'll have a short drive show that day, and then I'll hand the mic over to Porter at 3, and he'll take you up until, I believe, 5. And then Bill, Sly, and Zach will have the official Utah pregame show for you right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. So make sure to mark your calendars. Obviously, 3 home games to start the season. I do kind of like the dynamic of having the first game on a Thursday because it gives you 9 days to prepare for an SEC team in Arkansas rolling into town on the 12th for an 8:15 kick. That game is on Big Boy ESPN. Our pregame coverage that day will begin at 4:15 on Saturday. And then, of course, your non-con completes with Utah State. The following Saturday at 1:30 p.m., that game is on Fox, on Big Boy Fox. So some exciting stuff ahead there for Utah football, and some exciting stuff for us here on the station. Have Bill and Sly up in the booth, and then Zach Moss, former Ute great, on the sideline as new sideline reporter. We also have some breaking Real Salt Lake news, and this is really good news because after moving Xavier Gozo to Crystal Palace, and by the way, Gozo scored a goal over the weekend for the U21s. There was some confusion, I think, with some local reporters. He did not score a goal for Crystal Palace. He's not playing with the first team yet. He's starting his premiership journey with the U21s for Crystal Palace, and Gozo scored a goal, so good for him. But there were reports that there were several clubs interested in young Sergei Solins, the rookie who has burst out of the gates, has 13 goals in all competitions for RSL, 9 MLS goals, which is a new record for RSL as far as rookies go. 14 regular season games left, so we'll see if Sergei can get up to 15 or 16 goals, at least in MLS play, and we need him to keep scoring in Leagues Cup as well. A lot of reports out there that there were some clubs making some very aggressive offers for Sergei Solins. Well, RSL has announced today that it extended Sergei Solins through the 2029-2030 MLS season with a club option for 2030-2031. This is really good news. He's a really good young player, and he's had an incredible rookie season for RSL, one of the best rookie seasons that the club has ever seen. So there you go. RSL has elected to not move Sergei on to a bigger club for a fee. They've decided to extend this young player who's burst out of the gates and played really, really well as your first choice 9. So a little breaking RSL news on the program today. Little breaking broadcasting news as our broadcasting change features Stevenson Sylvester heading up to the booth next to Bill Riley and Zach Moss taking over on the sidelines. All right, really weird story out of the NFL today. We touched on this earlier, and the news broke earlier today that Jed York, who is the owner of the San Francisco 49ers, entered a no contest plea to a pair of misdemeanor charges today after being arrested in Ohio on suspicion of engaging in prostitution. So according to the Columbiana County court records obtained by ESPN earlier, Jed York allegedly responded to an undercover ad on a known prostitution website and arranged to have sexual activity with a female in exchange for $140. This man is a billionaire. A lot of weird things about this story. He was arrested upon arriving at the meeting location with the cell phone used to arrange the meeting, according to these records. It gets weirder. An arrest report filed by the East Palestine Police Department notes that York was arrested Sunday morning at 9:35 a.m. Sunday morning at 9:35 a.m., wait for it, at the Wheat Hill Mobile Home Community. My man was at a trailer park on Sunday morning at 9:30 trying to hook up with a prostitute for $140. So the charges initially, so East Palestine Police assisting the Mahoning Valley Human Trafficking Task Force in York's arrest outlined the charges that initially it was misdemeanor counts of engaging in prostitution and possessing criminal tools. The criminal tools are the cell phone he was arrested with that he used to set up this meeting. Now, of course, with a guy as powerful as this, with as much money as he has, I'm sure they were trying desperately to keep this under wraps. I think it was TMZ who got the mugshot because, of course, I thought that was supposed to be illegal. But the former charge was amended to misdemeanor disorderly conduct as part of a plea agreement resolving the case. York's attorney didn't reply to requests for comment. The 49ers actually about an hour ago did finally release a statement. Now, remember, this is the majority owner of the team and a guy that took over as majority owner in 2023, but he's been basically their chief executive officer since 2008. So the 49ers did release a statement, but it said, quote, "As this is a legal matter which has been resolved, we will not be providing any further comment at this time." So we're not going to hear anything else from the club. The NFL released a statement, said the league is, quote, "aware of the matter, which will be reviewed under the personal conduct policy." The court records say that the local prosecutor filed a plea arrangement this morning. after the no contest plea. And Jed York paid $1,150 in fines, $150 for the disorderly conduct charge, and $1,000 for the criminal tools charge. Sentenced to 1 day in jail for each charge, with 1 day already considered to be served. I don't know if they're going to fly him back to make him spend one more day in jail. According to the prosecutor, it's pretty routine for somebody facing the charges like this with not having a background of criminal conduct in his past. Jed York filed for divorce from his wife in May, according to documents filed in Santa Clara. And as I referenced, majority owner of the Niners since 2004, but has been the team's chief executive officer since 2008. Originally from Ohio. Weird stuff. Weird stuff when you get an alert on your phone about something like this, and then you dig into it and read that the billionaire owner of the San Francisco 49ers was arrested in a trailer park in Ohio for agreeing to meet with a woman for $140. And now, this is going to be kind of the deal where the Niners are going to have to deal with this distraction, and also the Kyle Shanahan car accident story that no one was ever really able to kind of pin down as far as what happened there. And that's a really good division if we want to make it like a football story. I mean, are the Niners in a spot now where they're going to look to basically reload? The Rams are in an unbelievable position as the Super Bowl favorite. The Seahawks just won the thing. The Cardinals are unserious. You don't have to worry about the Cardinals, but the NFC West is jam-packed. And I always thought the Niners were like, Brock Purdy's very good, but they had like a Super Bowl roster around the quarterback position. And then Brock Purdy came in as Mr. Irrelevant and kind of solidified the thing. Is he a guy that's ever going to take you to win a Super Bowl? I don't know. I don't think so. George Kittle is older. Christian McCaffrey, of course, can't stay healthy, as talented as he is. They've had some wide receiver issues. I think Ricky Pearsall is out for the year again. They did bring in Mike Evans, but that's a crowded division, the NFC West is. And now you've got your owner driving to a trailer park in Ohio to meet up with a woman he paid $140, to hook up with. It's weird stuff all around in the NFL pertaining to this story. Deshaun Watson was named the Browns QB1 after ripping Browns fans over the weekend for booing him during a game. A lot of people reacting to that today. I think that job will belong to Shedeur Sanders at some point this year. Spencer Fano and Logan Fano. Logan had 4 tackles over the weekend, so we got some action on defense. Britton Covey caught a touchdown pass over the weekend, so that was cool with the Eagles. Returned 4 kicks, so it looks like Britton might have solidified his spot with the Eagles. Of course, there's still cut day. 53-man roster for the season. That will be 4 o'clock on Sunday, 4 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday. So we will learn which former local players are able to make NFL rosters. Of course, we'll always keep our fingers crossed for players like Britton Covey. You saw Jordan Love over the weekend. He looked really sharp in one drive for Green Bay. Obviously, paying attention to what he could do this year. Green Bay is one of those teams kind of outside the top 4 or 5 that people think might be able to compete for something special. But preseason NFL action kind of gives you something to wet your whistle. Karene Reed and Jonah Ellis were on the field for the Broncos. We saw Carson Ryan catch a pass for the Browns. Tyler Huntley got the start for the Ravens. Didn't look great, then settled in later on. And Zach Wilson is battling for the backup job with the New Orleans Saints. So some local flavor in the NFL as we are inching closer and closer to week 1 of pro football. But, of course, college football, very topical around here. We will catch a break. We have 2 hours in the books. We have 2 hours to go. The triumphant return of Kyle Bonagura. It's been a while since we've had Kyle on the show. Does college football and soccer for ESPN. So we'll bring Kyle in coming up next. Trey will join us later on to give us the latest with RSL. They're in Leagues Cup action tomorrow. Back at MLS, back at it with MLS play coming up this weekend. And they have not won an MLS game since May 16th. They've got 3 draws and 4 losses. They're down to 8th on the table. It's probably time to hit the panic button a little bit. The summer transfer window closes in about 10 days. 9 days specifically. So I believe it's September the 2nd. So 9 days for Kurt Schmidt and Jason Kreis and RSL ownership to decide if they're going to give Pablo some reinforcements. So we'll do that coming up. Then back to college football in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll say goodnight at 6. Busy Monday drive. Good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. It's RSL's arch rival, and the Rapids aren't necessarily playing nice about providing practice facilities and such. Sergey Solins has been extended by the club. We'll do more RSL a little bit later on. We're back to some college football in the 5 o'clock hour. And we'll do some college football and a little soccer now with our buddy Kyle Bonagura, the triumphant return. It's been too long. What's up, man? How are you?
Well, now you just got me thinking about why are they not playing the Leagues Cup match at Rice Eccles? Like, is that possible? Was that looked into? Kind of returning home, but I guess that's probably probably neither here nor there.
Well, it's a fair question, and as somebody who was with the club when we played our home matches at Rice Eccles while we were building our stadium, I'll put it gently and say they weren't thrilled with our presence there as they're getting ready for a college football season.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I imagine it's probably the best way to do it, but you figure it's probably better than leaving the state if you're RSL.
For sure. What's been keeping your attention as we're getting close to college football, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, the last week or so, I've been really into this idea that guys in NFL training camps are going to be back on college campuses this fall. It's like in the what is next development for college football. I think if you would have asked me like maybe 3 years ago if this was possible, I would have just kind of laughed at you. Could you only imagine type of scenario? But now it feels like the next logical step in kind of the evolution of the sport, which is it's college football, college in like heavy bolded quotation marks because it's clearly just a pretty professional sport here, and the idea that they're amateurs is just kind of comical now.
So I did look. It's social media, so I don't know what's real and what isn't. But there was something floating around that Justin Fields was trying to get back into the college football game. I don't know if that's real, but since this is kind of the thing you've been focused in on, like what's realistic to expect that maybe we've already seen G League guys play college basketball. Are we going to see something similar in college football?
I haven't seen the Fields thing. That strikes me as probably social media driven and not something that's actually realistic. But I think it really more than anything, like the individual like machinations of the whole thing are like kind of tough to keep up with. But I do think it kind of just begs larger questions about the structure of the sport. Like I think it's if you compare it to, I think soccer from a development standpoint, like it's a pretty useful comparison because like let's just keep it local. Like Xavier Gozo, he becomes a professional in his teenage years because he's good enough to play at that level, right? And then when he proved that he was good enough to move on from MLS, like he had the opportunity to do so in that moment because if there was because there was a team at a higher level. That wanted him, and the interest was mutual, right? So he gets to go over to England and get that bump when he's like able to. Like in the United States with American football, I feel funny even saying that with you right now, but like just because we're making this comparison to soccer, there's not the development process doesn't it's tough, right? Because you're confined to college being the level where you jump up. You have a X amount of years to do it. You have to be it's tied, like the idea that this developmental league for professional sports is tethered to public education and private education in a bunch of different states. It just never makes any sense, right? And so college football is like a victim of its own popularity, and that it started out making a lot of sense to do it that way. You have teams representing schools, but now that it's just gotten so big that it's just tough to keep a lid on it at this point.
Are we still because Bronco Mendenhall is coaching Utah State now, and he has a defensive back who played for him at Virginia and New Mexico, who is going to try to play for Utah State this year. He's going to try to take advantage of this 5-5 deal for that class that was kind of right outside the window. And Bronco referenced over the weekend they're all just waiting for the NCAA to make the official ruling. What's your understanding on where we're at with this situation? Because Dallin Hall just transferred back to Utah State. He played 3 years at BYU. He was at Virginia. He's taken advantage of that 5th year. Jackson Kohler, who's been at Michigan State for 4 years, just transferred to BYU. So it feels like the basketball teams are taking advantage of this. Are the football teams going to have the same opportunity?
I think so. I mean, yeah, because there was a rule, and I forget what state it was in, where they were given the order was that the 5-5 guys like should have had the opportunity to play, and like before, like the NCAA ruled that they were, and so like the NCAA just keeps losing time after time again in court. So it feels weird that there was going to be the 5-5 rule, but that initial recruitment class year was like not going to have the ability to do it. Like the application has been a little bit uneven from that standpoint. So I think that everyone who is kind of borderline is like they are going to make the case that they can do it. I feel like they're probably going to get that chance because the NCAA at a certain point, it's just got to kind of just wave its hands up and say, look, we can't keep up with all the enforcement. The courts keep making us change our mind, and so it becomes more of a problem for them to stand in the way of these kids who might have a valid case for it. I haven't tracked the Utah State one close enough to understand like how that criteria might be similar or different than the others. But it's just bizarre to see someone who you play in an NFL preseason game, and then week later you might have been training camp on a college campus. But again, it's just going to keep trending in this direction as the sport's more professionalized.
The Protect College Sports Act, the vote has been pushed back through September, which I thought it was going to be, and I still am not confident that they're ever going to get that thing through. But if we operate off the premise that they will, which is hard for me to do, is this the thing that we've all been waiting for, that will actually finally provide some sort of structure for a sport that continues to feel like chaos?
I don't think so, because I first of all, I think we're going to leave it to like Congress to solve college sports. It's just kind of laughable on its face that like those are the people who are going to come in and find an eloquent solution for an entity that like operates in that space all the time. Like, and then you have how politics works. Like people cycle out, like administrations change, priorities change, and then someone else comes in and reverses course in however many years, right? So none of these solutions or changes. I don't think we can look at anything in college sports as being permanent, right? I think that it might be the thing for a couple of years until the next thing comes along, right? And so I think you have to have a very short attention span now with college sports and what the structure looks like, and that goes with the act you mentioned and realignment and eligibility rules and all of those things. Like I remember talking to Kyle Whittingham a couple of years ago at a media day, and he was like, "Look, I think eventually you get to a place where you don't have to go to class. You're just employees of the school. Maybe there's not even an elevation or an eligibility cap at all, and you just are on the team for as long as you want to be, as long as the school will have you, because you could certainly. I mean, he didn't say this part, but like it's kind of reading between the lines that you could make the case that you're stunting your ability to make money with these restrictions and eligibility and all of these things. So you're kind of drinking out of fire hose of all the different changes year after year, and it's a little bit. I mean, it's entertaining day to day, but I don't know if it's really good for the sport.
One of the things that at least has been proposed with that piece of legislation is a spending cap, which, if I remember correctly, it's the 22 and change you can pay the players as an institution. And then I think another 25 or 26 in NIL, bringing the total, I'll just say salary cap. I don't know why we keep pretending like this isn't a pro thing at this point. It just is. So we can use different terms. Transfer portal is free agency. And, they basically have it every year, which is just beyond stupid. But I do think that proposed, I'm going to say salary cap, $48.5 million for all P4 institutions. And I think $5.5 million is earmarked for women's sports as well, which of course is a good thing. But, if you're not in the Big Ten or the SEC, you got to find a way to even the playing field. And if Ohio State can spend $80 million on their roster and Utah or Colorado or whoever they don't have that kind of cash, it does feel like the gap between the top and everyone else has always been pretty big, but it does feel like that's just going to continue to get bigger, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, you spelled it out. I mean, and that's the thing is like, even if you have a salary cap, again, in kind of sarcastic quotation marks, no one's going to be able to stop people from getting money outside the cap, right? So like all these donors and potential sponsors in different places. If Ohio State's spending $80 million, that's not going to change if there's like a hard cap and it's legislative. It's just not. There's just not enough enforcement. There's not enough bite at the NCAA to be able to enforce outside roster spends, right? I mean, shoot, we were seeing the Kawhi Leonard scandal at the NBA. Like it's very easy to funnel money to players outside of the cap. So like it doesn't even matter to a certain extent, right? Because like that's just the way that the culture works in college sports. So yeah, it's the gap's going to be huge. I mean, like, and I think even more than that is the importance of, like you said, like the transfer, like no transfer restrictions, like in sitting out. Like if you can transfer year to year, right? If you don't have to sit out a year, there's just going to be upward mobility with all the rosters are going to reset every year. Before, at least, when maybe let's just look West Coast. Like say USC was always going to recruit the best class, and Oregon and Washington, they were always going to get the on the West Coast. But if you're a smaller school and you were able to string together a couple pretty good classes, and you let a bunch of kids play as freshmen, you really had a chance to really win in cycles where you could develop a core group of guys over 3-4 years and be good when they're seniors. Well, now like that model is completely dead too, because you put 10 freshmen in the starting lineup and they all show some promise. Then they're gone, and they're getting money to go to a bigger program with a bigger budget somewhere else, and so it becomes a lot harder for those schools outside of the very top tier to be consistent year over year. And I think you're gonna in theory see the same schools at the top, but at the same time I have to look at the other side of things. Indiana just won the national title, and they're like the losingest program in college football history, and for that turnaround to come at a time where we're in this new era does make it a little bit more interesting than had we have seen Notre Dame or Ohio State win the national title last year. It does show that if you are able to find the investment from wherever that might be, big donors, the list goes on. Like if you can get into that spending tier, if your university emphasizes winning football in a way that maybe it hadn't in years past, maybe there's a chance for you to rise up. But it certainly will be about money more than anything for the foreseeable future.
So we were down at Big 12 Media Days in July in Frisco. First of all, have you ever been to Frisco, Kyle?
I have not.
Don't. Just leave it. It's the weirdest place. It was created for that Cowboys facility. There's nothing to do, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just giving you some friendly advice. Do not go to Frisco. There's no reason for you to go. Look, this is a weird conference, man. It just is. Like Brett Yormark gets up and gives this State of the Union address as if he's either a preacher or running for office. There were some weird questions asked by some fans that have credentials now about Texas Tech. And at one point he's like, oh, and we have a deal in place with Monster Energy. And everyone's kind of looking around like, what, we do? Like he was breaking news to a lot of people, including people that are part of the conference. It's a conference that constantly will be crying about lack of respect as it pertains to the ecosystem of college football. And if we're honest, this is a P2 reality. It's not a P4 reality. It's the Big Ten. It's the SEC, of course, the Big Ten, last 3 national champs, I believe. And then prior to that, I think the SEC had won 6 straight. I probably have the numbers a little bit skewed. But when we try to understand what this sport is going to look like moving forward, the Protect College Sports Act included a amendment that was brought to the table by a legislator from Florida. And of course, in her backyard is Florida State and Miami out of the ACC, who clearly would like to get gone and probably join the SEC or the Big Ten if they have the option. But the amendment said if this thing goes through, member institutions will have 30 days to leave their current conference in order to avoid the 5-year probationary period where you're not allowed to jump. And around here, it just continues to be this Utah to the Big Ten eventuality hope. I don't know if it's even real. There are some people that are up on campus that it's not just a hope, it's an expectation. They partnered with a private equity firm, and we still don't have the information as far as what the specifics look like there, numbers-wise. There have been reports out there that have been refuted. There are rumors out here that I'm not comfortable going on air with. But I have to imagine if you're private equity and you're looking at the future of Utah football, at some point, maybe 5 to 7 years, you're going to be asking for your return on investment. And that 5-year period coincides with the Big 12 media rights going to market at 2031. But a Big Ten invite for Utah football would solve all the things that people around here are super nervous about. Do you have any insight as to whether or not that's a realistic expectation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's too early to say whether they would be in the mix for that. Like, I'm just not comfortable understanding the dynamics enough to really speculate beyond the idea that, look, the realignment will never be done. I don't think it'll ever settle. And so I think what's clear is that Utah should do everything in their power to position itself as best it can for when the next kind of wave of realignment comes. And the Big Ten is the obvious, destination where it should try to get to, right? And so I think what's also interesting too, right? Is there it's not like a relegation, but is there a scenario where the Big Ten and the SEC kind of look at the bottom of their conference and are like, look, Purdue, it's been nice having you. Rutgers, we thought that was cool to be in the New York market. Maybe Minnesota, look, it's been fun. And then do you get smaller to kind of invite in other schools that might be more lucrative options? I think that has to be considered at some point. Vanderbilt and the SEC is such a drag on them financially that that feels like a logical step for and everything has to be kind of looked at through money, right? If you're trying to maximize the value for the conference, you want to cut the low-hanging fruit and then also add schools that are valuable, right? And I do think that Utah has a lot going for it in that it has a big fan base. It's in a big market, relatively big market that doesn't have the NFL. I would put BYU right there as well, almost like a package deal in that you have these two, you have this built-in rivalry for scheduling, and all of that is good. They're both in a place that cares about football. I think that's good. But the flip side is is it one or the other? And if it's one or the other, okay, how does the math work on that? Because when you looked at you see a school like Washington and Oregon, they left without their rivals. So we've seen Oklahoma without Oklahoma State. So there's so many factors that go into it, and I haven't heard anything that seems to indicate that Utah is it's imminent or anything like that. But again, the private equity deal certainly is a statement of intent that they're trying to be more proactive than they had been in the past, and we'll see where the numbers shake out on that.
So, look, 10 days out for game day for Utah football. I see that you and Schleybaugh did your bowl projections. That's obviously a assignment, so it's really hard to it's poll season, right? And so we're trying to figure out where people think Utah is going to land this year. And with Witt in Ann Arbor and Morgan Scalley sliding over a chair, I just keep saying I'm more curious than confident. I honestly don't know. I've known Morgan for 25 years. He's a great guy, and I think he's ready for this moment. They get their quarterback back. They bring in an OC that believes in the same concepts as the last one. There's a lot of conversation about the wide receiver room being as deep, if not deeper than ever. There are a lot of reasons to be optimistic, and there are a lot of reasons to be hopeful. I cannot definitively say into this microphone what I think they are going to be this year. 21 in the AP and the coaches poll. Some polls not in at all. Klatt had them out of his top 25. Vanini had him 26. It's hard to pin down, man. I honestly am not confident in giving some sort of hey, they're going to win 10 games or whatever. I think they have a chance to continue kind of the standard that Witt built because Morgan coached with him for so long and played for the program before that. As we get into season, we'll have some data we don't right now. Your expectation for this season for the Utes, Kyle, sounds like what?
Yeah, I don't think there's any really reason to change expectations for them. I think to be top third in the conference is the expectation. You want to compete for a conference title. I do think that there's the Texas Tech thing with them just having so much more money invested in their roster makes it that's a tough bridge to cross, right? Weirder things have happened, but I think it's Texas Tech is clearly the favorite again in the conference, especially after what they showed last year. And so you're kind of in that second tier going into the year. But like, it's so hard now. Like, it was always hard to predict college football, and now with all the movement and all the transfer, like, just keeping track of the rosters is impossible. You can't, like, you used to have the old formula was like returning starters on both sides of the ball, returning quarterback. You have this, and this, like coaching staff, continuity, all those things. Like, you just got to blow all that stuff up now and kind of just take stock in week 3 because no one knows anything, me more than anyone.
You can add me to your list because every year we do the thing where it's like, all right, we've got our top 25, or, Kyle and Mark did their bowl projections, or, okay, the Athletic has their list. And every year, certainly in the Big 12, it does feel like there are 2 or 3 teams that turn out to be way better than we thought, and 2 or 3 teams that cannot figure it out at all. But one thing that is consistent, Kyle, is that BYU is either picked to finish first or second in this conference. I've seen nobody pick them to finish third. The coaches voted them as the team to win it. I think a lot of people believe they have a chance to get it done. Of course, Texas Tech had the Sorsby stuff. Will Hammond rolled into Salt Lake last year and played really good football. Prediction markets and sports books still believe Texas Tech should be the favorite. Kalani Sitake flirted with Penn State and decided to stay in Provo. Bear Bachmeier, the 4th freshman in college football history to win 12 games or more, and he is really, really good. L.J. Martin was the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year a year ago, got that preseason award this year. There have been some interesting pieces of news, namely Kalani himself going on radio shows, our sister station down in Provo, and complaining about not having the resources he was promised. It's provided a bit of a distraction. I don't know if that leaks into the locker room, but let's move over to BYU now. I think more people are bullish on them. It feels like BYU has the benefit of the doubt that Utah had a number of years when Witt was here.
Yeah, and I think all that's right. Like, just to, I guess, because I did publish the bowl predictions, I'm pretty sure like that I had BYU in the playoff in my bowl predictions. So to kind of throw that out, am I confident in that? Like, no. I do think, look, they've been in the mix the last 2 years. Having Satake, still there obviously is, look, you can kind of football coaching matters in any other sport, and here's a guy who's coached his teams to a lot of success the last 2 years. So like that matters, right? L.J. Martin, of course, quarterback. I mean, we talked about some of the things you look for before. Like, they actually do have quite a few of those things that you're looking for when you're trying to, project a team going into the season. And so, yeah, look, I think they're but I think they're right there in that same tier as Utah. Like I still think Texas Tech. Look, they played Tech twice last year, and it was pretty clear both times that Texas Tech was a cut above BYU. And so I would say that for me, they're closer to Utah in that second tier than they are to Texas Tech in that top tier. And as for like Kalani kind of making it known that he's a little disappointed in the resources, like, that's part of the game, right? You got to do everything you can to maximize the resources for your program. If he thinks like that was the tactic to generate more support internally, whether that ruffled a few feathers along the way, like, if it, I think it's probably fairly calculated. In that, look, if I speak up, he's got some cachet, right? He was pursued by a big time power and chose to stay, and now he's won at a high level. He's showed some loyalty. Now it's time for him to kind of use that. Look, he's got that. He's got a little bit of I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but he's got some cards to play, right? And this is just, to me, it appeared like just something he was doing to try to help his program win football games, and I think I kind of admire that.
All right, Kyle, before I set you loose, since you and I last spoke, we had the World Cup coming to an end. I thought it was awesome. I was pleased with how everything kind of, fell into place. Look, we're not a perfect country, not even close. I don't know that there is one of those anyway. But a lot of people were very skeptical about our ability to host the largest sporting event in the world. And from my vantage point, I thought it was great. I thought it was a great tournament. But since you and I last spoke, Mauricio Pochettino has been retained for the next cycle. So 2030, we've got Morocco, Portugal, and Spain. I'm going to try to get over there because it sounds awesome. I'll have to start saving now based off of the way the tickets are priced. But are you surprised that they brought Pochettino back? And what are you looking for over the next 4 years to maybe make next one look a little bit different for us?
So I'm not surprised they brought him back. I guess I'm a little bit surprised that he wanted to come back. I mean, for me, he seemed like someone who was so into the club game, and the cadence of what that looks like as a coach, game planning, working with guys year round. Maybe he just enjoyed. Maybe it's not. Maybe he clearly enjoyed his time with the U.S. Going to the World Cup and being around that team, and kind of being in the face of U.S. soccer for a summer. So I think it's good. I mean, I think he's a very good coach. Obviously, like they had the elimination game against Belgium was certainly not the way that they wanted things to end, and he did set the team up for success in that game. But at the same time, I think you give him more time to be around the team and know the players and kind of help plan for the future instead of what the case was the last time around, where he kind of helicoptered in at the end and tried to make the best of what he had. Like, it's really intriguing, and I think the core group of players is still very good, and I think things continue to be on the rise for U.S. soccer, and I definitely also need to start saving that because I need to get to Portugal for at least one game.
I'm with you, man. All right, buddy. I appreciate the time, and keep up the great work, and we'll get you back soon. Thank you, Kyle.
All right. Sounds good. See you.
Kyle Bonagura covers college football and soccer for ESPN. Want to let you know that the Utah State Fair is coming up, and ESPN 700 wants to send you and the family. Tune in to the Sean O'Connell Show around noon every day for a chance to score a family 4-pack of tickets to the Utah State Fair. More details can be found at ESPN700sports.com. Also want to let you know that, like any good coach, it's time to update the game plan for a healthy green lawn. As the hot weather continues this month, make sure you're using IFA Step 3 Spring and Summer Lawn Food for healthy turf that stays green every season. IFA Step 3 Lawn Food, it is the ultimate lawn owner power move. We'll catch a break. Coming up next, we'll get the latest with RSL with Trey Fitzgerald. We're going to get back to college football in the 5 o'clock hour, and then we're going to say goodnight at 6 on a Monday show. So keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, we'll get back to some college football conversation in the 5 o'clock hour of the program tonight. We've got about 90 minutes left in the show. We'll say goodnight at 6. But a big day today for RSL fans after watching the club move Xavier Gozo on to Crystal Palace for a record $15 million transfer fee. Rumors were surfacing that maybe they would move on from Sergei Solins, their bright young rookie who has scored 13 goals across all competitions. And today it has been announced that RSL has extended Sergei through the 2029-2030 MLS season with a club option for 2030 and 2031. And Sergei Solins is our guest on this Monday afternoon. Congratulations, young man. How are you?
Very good. Thank you so much. Yeah, grateful to have this opportunity again.
No, I appreciate your time today. So, look, there were a lot of rumors, Sergei, that you were going to be moved to a bigger club for a fee. Tell us about this process that has landed you back with the club with a nice contract in your back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, my head was always trying to help the club. Since when I signed, I was very grateful for the opportunity that they gave me after college. And then I know that during this summer, my agent was working on, we would have other options after the first 6 months. Basically because, my family, of course, I'm from Europe, from Spain, and my family would like to be closer to me to come to more games, But when Salt Lake offered us, the offer that they made, I think it was very, very, very accurate, was very nice. I'm very grateful again to have this opportunity to continue in this club. It's been an amazing 8 months in my life. Where I find the happiness, I found a very good family that I joined. So now I'll just continue doing what I have been doing and, having fun.
So do you look at this now as a kind of testament to the commitment that the club has to you, Sergei, as kind of like a signal of how much they believe in you?
100%. It was something, not that I was wondering of, but after college, it's hard. It's hard that the club really trust you and believe in you. But I think the club and particularly Court and Jason, they are very close to me. They always have been telling me how much they trust me, how much they believe in me since the first day of the preseason. So yeah, I mean, I just have to be grateful for everything that's happening.
Tell me if I know you believe in yourself. I know you have confidence in what you can do. But are you even surprised with how well you've played this year? You have 13 goals so far across all competitions. Are you surprised that you've been able to do what you've been able to do for the club?
Yeah, I was speaking with my family before, and I was telling them that I signed a new contract. And the first thing they said is, imagine 8 months ago if somebody would told you that. So I think it's part of the dream that I'm living, to be honest. I don't know if I'm very conscious of everything, but I think I just need to keep doing what I have been doing, that is having fun playing with my teammates, with the staff, with everyone that helped me during these 8 first months, and keep doing the same.
Tell me your thoughts right now, Sergei, with the club. I mean, Gozo has been moved on to Crystal Palace. There are a lot of players that are hurt. Jay Glad, you've got Zach Booth. I could keep going. And, you've got a big match tomorrow night. We'll get to that in a moment. But, 4 losses and 3 draws in your past 7 MLS games. You guys are down to 8th on the table. Is it fatigue? Is it, injuries? What's been going on with the results as of late?
Yeah, I think not to put excuses, but I think for some teams, the World Cup break helped them. I think for us, it was the opposite. It stopped our rhythm, how we have been, the confidence and everything. So, and also starting 3 games away, it was pretty hard for us. But I have confidence on the team, on the club, that we will change this dynamic. Always in the season, you have these steps that you have to go through. But I really believe on the club, on my teammates and the coaches, that we can. Tomorrow we have a huge opportunity to reverse ourselves, to prove ourselves that we are able to compete in this league, in this Cup tournament, and then we have another opportunity on Saturday that we have to win if we want to be in the playoff positions. Yeah.
Tell me about playing for Pablo. You know, we had him on. He joins us almost on a weekly basis, and he, has really built a reputation as kind of a player's coach. What sort of insight can you share with us about your head coach?
Yeah, I think something that surprised me is the way he understands soccer is very similar than how I understand it. Always trying with the ball, always trying to be vertical, trying to create as many chances as possible, and without the ball pressing all the time, trying to recover the ball as soon as possible. Run a lot of transitions, and I think we have been doing a great job so far. I think some of the games we lost just for some disconnection or something like this. But if we can fix the mistakes and how we maybe defend a little bit better, I think we have the ability to score some goals. So the rest of the season can be so much exciting.
So when you heard that Gozo was being moved to Crystal Palace, what was your reaction, Sergey, and what was the reaction of the locker room? I'm sure you were happy for him, but it's hard to lose a player who is playing so well, yeah?
For sure. I completely agree. I think it was a mix of happiness for him and exciting for him, because I think it's a huge opportunity that he got to take, just because of his career, because of his age, because of his potential. And then the club decided that. I think it was a smart decision for the club. I know that it was not easy for them because, as you said, Gozo was had a huge role in our team, in our right side, but I think it was the best for him. So now what we have right now, and maybe something that is going to come, we need to be stronger. We need to compete as the best as we can and try to get the results.
Give me some players you think can step up on the team to kind of make up for his absence. Who are you guys counting on?
I think, we were all very hoping that Zach would take that role, because I think it's a similar player, maybe with more experience, not maybe with that speed or that ability to run that match. But I think Zach was the perfect example. But since Zach is injured, maybe I think Saba can play a huge role over there. How fast he is, how good he is with the ball, and how aggressive he is in the final third, I think he can help us a lot.
You referenced the World Cup break. If I remember right, we had Pablo on after Spain won the World Cup, and I asked him if you were excited, and he said that you were cheering for Argentina. Is that true?
Well, it was a mix. It was a 50-50, to be honest. The final. I was actually born almost with watching Messi during all my life. I watched Messi and Barca, so I had this feeling a little bit for him. But I also am very happy for Spain to win. I think they demonstrate that they are a solid team. That if you don't concede, you can win like huge title as they did. And we have to look at them to fix our mistakes and to get better defending, because then attacking, we have the quality to score goals.
So 50-50 then.
Yeah.
Okay. And a lot of that is the Messi effect, right?
Basically, yeah.
Tell me what it was like for you to play against him for the first time, to be on the same field as Lionel Messi. What was that like for you?
Part of the dream. Honestly, part of the dream. When I was just playing my friends, they were like, "Oh my God, man, you don't know what you are doing. Like, you are being so lucky that you are on the field." So I was trying to remember this every time I was in the field, like trying to work hard to play as well as I could. But yeah, I think it was part of the dream, part of the experience, everything. Is another experience that I will tell my kids or my family. I'm sure they are happy for me, and I'm also very, very proud of that.
You're still a very young player, so you're only 23 years old. You're a rookie. You've referenced a couple of times during our interview your dreams. How big do they get when you think about what you can do with this sport? How big do those dreams get?
As big as you can imagine. That's what I want to keep working on. Try to make the window as big as possible, so then I can. Well, in the future, maybe I can decide with more options. I think it's part of the soccer too. having as many options as you can, and then decide which one makes more sense. But I think I don't want to put limits on myself. I want to keep improving every day, scoring as many goals as I can, and enjoy the moment. That is something I actually need to be very proud of.
Tell me what your experience has been like living in our state. I would imagine as a young man from Spain, I know you moved over here and you played some soccer in college at Oregon State and UCLA, so I know you're familiar with our country, but we're kind of a different little spot that most people don't know a ton about unless they're from around here. What did you know about Utah before you moved here, and what's it been like for you now that you live here?
Honestly, I didn't know that much. In Spain, we don't have this knowledge about all the states in the United States, but since I arrived here, of course, it's a different environment than LA. Of course, different environment than California. But it was, I think, it's pretty similar than Oregon in terms of views, in terms of the people, how nice they are. There's something that I'm very grateful of the fans and everyone. They don't care about where you come from. Just they support you because you play for Real Salt Lake, and that's something. It's really nice for them and really helpful for us too.
What has the challenge been? And Sergey Solins is our guest, RSL striker. He just signed a contract extension today, despite the rumors of him maybe going to a different club. Sergey will be part of RSL for the next 4 or 5 years, which is very exciting for RSL fans. What's been the issue taking results on the road? I mean, you guys have been so good at home, and then you go on the road and it just only one win all year. How do you rectify that?
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think we need to get better on the defensive side. The first one, it's me, like pressing and recovering more, running more, putting more hard work on it. And then everyone needs to, as I said after the game, after Dallas, look everyone on their faces and try to tell us, everyone, what we can do better. Because I think then the good things can happen. Of course, it's different. In this league, we can see everyone struggles on the road. But I think we have to be better. At least not lose every game. I think we should compete more. But yeah, I think in this team, I believe in this team. I believe in the coach. I believe in the club that we can get better on that.
All right, before I say you lose, tell me about tomorrow night. It's a big opportunity. If you win a quarterfinal, you advance and you go to the semis, and the top 3 clubs in this tournament will make the championship, club tournament throughout the course of the entire world. So it'd be a great opportunity for you guys to showcase your talents on a world stage. RSL has not lifted a trophy since 2009. It's a chance to do that. How are you guys preparing for Lyon? And then what has this been like for you guys to have the logistical travel changes? We thought it was going to be played here, but there's a concert, so you guys are in Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, that was not it was not ideally, to be honest. We wanted to play at home. As you said, at home we are so much stronger, but that was a club decision that we tried to change, but we couldn't. So we need to adapt on the situation that we have right now. I think it's going to be a very tight game with a lot of transitions, a lot of chances to score. And then I think, as Pablo says always, that's another thing that I really agree with him is if we score first, we really have a lot of chances to win the game. So I think the key is going to be on that. And then there's going to be both a lot of transitions, but in our side, like in the defensive side, I think we need to be stronger. We need to be more solid. And then on top, I cannot guarantee that I'm going to score, but I will try my best to score, yeah.
Ooh, I want a guarantee, Sergey. I want a guarantee. Give me a guarantee.
I will try my best.
Well, look, congratulations. I know how much the club values you, and it's a great day. So celebrate it and go get a win tomorrow, will you?
Thank you so much. I will. We will.
All right.
We will.
There we go. Sergey Solins, he has signed a contract extension for Real Salt Lake. He is the Golden Boot leader for the club. He has 13 goals across all competitions. He's already set a record for goals scored for rookies. Corey Baird had 8 goals during his MLS Rookie of the Year season in 2019. And Sergey has already broken that record with 9. And there are still plenty of matches left. So actually, I think he has 11 goals in MLS play. Anyway, big day for Sergey. He was, how shall I put this gently? You know what? I won't put it gently. I'm not good at that. He was not being paid market value. We're talking about like assistant general manager at Shields money. And now he gets extended through the 2029-2030 MLS season with a club option for 2030-2031. Want to let you know that Camp Scally is underway for Utah football. For the best coverage of Utes fall camp, keep it tuned to the Sean O'Connell Show and The Drive with Spence Checketts every day, and visit ESPN700sports.com. Camp Scally is brought to you by CenXL JBR, Beer Bar, Citron Cooperman, Big O Tires, Sound Warehouse, and your Utah Toyota dealers on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Haven't talked a lot of golf on the show today because, ultimately the world of professional golf is kind of in the playoff format, battle for the FedEx Cup. PGA Tour will be out here in October for the Bank of Utah Championship at Black Desert. Wyndham Clark got the win at the BMW. That's his third win of the season. Scotty Scheffler was sick. Carded a good final round, but was not in the mix. Wyndham finished 3 strokes clear of Patrick Cantlay and 4 strokes clear of Rory McIlroy. They were actually tied after the 11th hole. And then Wyndham just ran away. He birdied the final 3 holes of the tournament to take home $3.6 million. So a really good year for Wyndham Clark after an up-and-down emotional roller coaster year last year. U.S. Open champ. He's won 2 of those now. And I believe he is climbing up the rankings as it pertains to both the FedEx Cup points and then also just simply making money this year. He's had a great year. Speaking of golf, if you're looking for a place to play and you want to save a little bit of money and you want to play a quick round, check out Stansbury Park Golf Course. And if you haven't played it, definitely do it this weekend. Okay, it's a historic golf course, perfect combo of challenge, pace, and price, water on almost every hole, greens that roll true, and a layout that keeps you focused and fired up. And you can actually play a full round without spending your whole day out there. No long waits, no overpriced greens fees, just pure golf. Play 18 holes for only $45 on weekdays and $50 on weekends. It is right off of I-80. Super easy to get to and a great reason to explore Tooele County. Whether you're a weekend warrior or just need to escape the office grind, this is the spot. Grab your crew, your clubs, and a few extra balls. You're going to need them. Book now and experience Tooele County at its best, then stick around and explore Tooele County while you're there. Stansbury Park Golf Course. Great rates, gorgeous greens, all just minutes away. Totally worth it. Book your tee time now at stansburypark.gov/golf course. That's stansburypark.gov/golf course, sponsored by friends at Tooele County. All right, we got 3 hours in the books. We have 1 hour to go. Coming up during the final hour of the show, we will bring you just 1 hour of college football. We'll do a little big picture, Big 12. We have some Ute stuff coming up a little bit later. All before we say goodnight at 6 o'clock. Busy Monday edition of The Drive, and it's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700.